1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to another Cops Mentality podcast with Chris, Angel, and Matthias. A little while ago, we did my story.
Oh, you're recording?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then,
Coming to you live.
so
You fucking
I love that.
All right. So last episode we did my story, right? So we talked about doing all three of our stories. That way the listener can really see kind of what we're all about, our backgrounds, how we cope and deal with the things that we're talking about with other people and trying to give some type of advice or
Doing our stories.
and doing our stories.
so that the listeners can see, not hear.
Same thing.
I love it.
I gotta say,
9 o'clock at night. I'm tired.
dude, even if nobody listens to this shit, I'm having fun. So fucking.
9 o'clock at night. I've had a day. I dropped the fork on my foot.
Now he looks like me
Not that you can see it.
on one side.
All right, whose story are we doing today? I'm not changing how I say it. You can suck it.
I think we're doing mine now.
I think we're yeah.
Matthias.
Matthias' story is gonna be about 5 episodes.
Correct.
Or-
Matthias is gonna be a short documentary.
Let's stick with the two of us.
A short
You know,
documentary.
I'm just gonna put it out there. To have a podcast, you got to be able to talk. So at least I got material for days, right?
I mean, that was the one thing even you can.
Yeah.
You figured out. Man's got no problem talking.
Not at all.
No,
Day one.
I enjoy it. You know,
Day
it's
one.
funny because sometimes people are like, "Oh, it's so hard to talk." I'm like, actually, it's not. I said, just talk. I mean, I may not make sense half the time, so you got to throw out half the information. But I just enjoy talking to people. You know, I want to know about people's lives. I want to know about how they think. I want to know if they're thinking something different than me. It's funny because I have all three of us, both of us, speak Spanish, and sometimes
Who
people
you,
ask,
Chris?
"No, you."
Oh.
Hola. Como esta?
Yeah, como estas. Sounds about like
Obviously go.
Chinese. No, but like somebody. So you're like, do you think in Spanish?
Cerveza, por favor.
Do you think in English? Like when you
Do you
talk?
speak in Spanish or think in Spanish?
I don't know what the hell I think.
To be honest, they say whichever language you think in is your predominant language. I think in English. That's what I've been speaking most of my life. I do speak Spanish, though.
When I listen to Bad Bunny,
Listen,
But it all depends on
I'm
your
ready as boy can be, and I rock Bad Bunny going.
But it all
nuts.
depends
Top
on-
people look at me like it's success.
it all depends on your environment.
shout out
If
to
I'm-
Bad Bunny.
If I'm around a lot of Hispanics, I'm thinking in Spanish. Like if I'm around,
So do you like self-translate? So like when I go and speak German,
so when I'm around
I
a lot
have
of
to-
Germans, I speak in German.
I have to like think about. Well, yeah, no, that makes sense because I have to like think about how I'm going to say. I have to like think about what I'm going to say, and how I'm going to
Just
say.
looking at your face. All you think is the line that I give you. That kind of stupid. Felt. I remember calling you that and they kind of stupid. Oh man, I will tell you this. Honestly, like talking to you guys the last couple of days and these last couple of weeks, leading to doing the podcast, it's been such a relief, man. It feels so good just to get shit off your chest, to talk to somebody, to not be judged. Half the people on here listening are probably like, what the fuck's is he going to say? That's all right. And I know there's one or two people out there that are going to be like, you know what? Good for them. Good for them for getting that out there. And we haven't even scratched the surface. Like there's nothing. Is that the saying? Scratch the surface?
Yeah.
We haven't even scratched the surface
Scratch
on what
my
we really
bones.
want to say. And let's just be real. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do 100% of what we want to say. Every podcaster's got something to lose, right? If you get into politics, you'll probably lose a certain amount of your audience. I don't think that's our problem at all. I think it's, trying to walk a straight line, knowing you're in law enforcement, knowing you represent the community. And all we want to do is really help. We're not trying to hinder anybody or really tell people what to do or how to feel or what to think. But just from talking to people in the last, I don't know, let's say 12 years since my injury, 13, a lot of people feel the same way. A lot of people think the same things, and I got a lot of questions. So why don't we just start off with just asking some of those questions to Angel. Angel and I went to eat at Miller's Ale House today, and
Talk about sponsoring us, man. We be shouting people out here left and right. Either they're gonna sponsor us or they're gonna sue the shit out of us.
I think it's B, my lord. I don't like to sue us, but that's all right. We got nothing to lose here.
Shit.
Well, they can take my legs, I guess. I don't know. They're worth a couple thousand each.
Glory to my Lord.
I asked Angel in the beginning of the academy, and then later on, as I got to know him, I said, "What's your deal? You know, talk to me." I said, "Nothing really bothers you. You're a cool cat. You know, I'll say something like, 'Oh my God, this was crazy.' He goes, 'Nah, it's all good.' And he shrugs everything off. And I've met a lot of people like that in my life, and I'm very intrigued to know what they went through, what caused them to be so closed off to other people, you know. And I respect that, because me, when I'm going through something, like even when I first started dealing with the anxiety and stuff, I reached out to both of you. I reached out to Jonathan. I reached out to other veterans. I reached out to a lot of people trying to figure out what those emotions, those feelings that I've never felt before really felt like. And Angel really hit it right on the head, you know, about now you can talk to me. Now I can talk to you and we can, you know, discuss some of the things that I've been so closed off about. You know, so why don't we start off with, you know, where were you born? Because that does bring a lot of our childhood into it. You know, the way you were raised, where you're born, where you were brought up. You know, most people are going to hear your story of the Dominican Republic, Marcy Projects. A lot of people are like, wow, those are some tough places to be raised. But we talked about it earlier. You said you had a great childhood. You know, tell me about yourself, your family. Like, who was Angel?
Well, yeah, Angel's my nickname to begin with. That's not my actual name, but we'll keep it at Angel. It does start with an A, and it is pretty close to Angel. Actually, they call me that more than Angel.
I'm sure you've had other things too.
So I was born in the Dominican Republic, in the capital of the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo. I had a great childhood. I don't think I have many bad things to say. I was always outside, whether it was flying a kite or playing with marbles or playing with rubber bands.
I missed those
Like,
days.
right? Like, it's stuff that we don't do anymore. And I'm not saying we as grown-ups. I mean, I hope we don't do that anymore. But kids don't do that anymore in the Dominican Republic. When I go visit, I was just there with the family for about 2 weeks, and it was amazing. I missed being out there and just doing the things that I used to do and eating the foods that I used to eat growing up, whether that was fruits or that was just actual food, and having my daughters enjoy the same things that I used to enjoy growing up. It's amazing. I enjoyed it very much. But again, I had a great childhood. I don't have many bad things to say. I came to the United States with my mom when I was 12, back in 1996.
Why did you guys move here?
1996.
I moved here in 1996 too.
Yeah, I moved here in 1996, and when we moved here, we went to the South Side in Williamsburg, which is now a nice area. It wasn't a nice area. I did not necessarily enjoy where I was in the South Side. So I told my mom that I was going to move out at the age of 12.
Fuck your mom.
So I did not enjoy it. There was one person in specific, and I'm not going to get into it. It was just not the greatest of situations, you know, from coming from the Dominican Republic and having all the freedom in the world to be outside playing all day long, to not being locked up in a house, and then the homeowner, and I would refer to him as the husband, which is not the greatest to be around, and I did not enjoy being around that person, just because that person was rude, and I have I guess, my attitude as well, so we just didn't jive. So I told my mom, I was like, listen, I'm gonna move to my aunt's house, which is in Marcy Projects, and sure enough, this is crazy because when I got here, I was in PS19, which was right across the street. Literally right across the street from that house that I was in, the first apartment that I was in. And I decided to go to Marcy Projects, to my aunt's house, where my other cousin used to live, and I had to take a bus to get to the school. So now I went from being able to cross the street and being at the school to having to take a bus to get to the school just because I didn't want to be around that person that was in that house.
Was that a school bus or was that like public transportation?
Oh, public transportation, man. There's no school buses in Brooklyn.
No?
Nah.
Hey, man,
Maybe now. Maybe now they do.
I say, you don't have school buses?
Not like that.
Jordan,
No.
I've never seen a school bus
Yeah.
going through the city ever.
That's funny you say that.
You
Oh
don't.
shit!
In Jewish neighborhoods, they have it.
I was getting ready to say that I've seen
Not
the
regular,
Jewish
not regular neighborhoods.
Yeah, but
And
that's a whole
I'm not
different
saying that the
animal.
Jewish neighborhood is not a regular neighborhood. It's just they have
No,
their
but they
Jewish
could think their
community.
own
Correct.
way.
They have their
They-
Jewish community. So
Right.
in the Jewish community, they have the school buses. But in the other neighborhoods that are not from the Jewish community, they don't have buses. So you have to take your trains and you have to take your regular buses, MTA. So yeah, it was that was an experience at 12. Moving out.
I could just
my
I could
mom
just picture
followed
the
too.
big, what's that movie, The Big Daddy? He goes, but I wipe my own ass.
My mom followed.
Ollie
too,
said
bro.
that to me today. He took a shit and walked out. He goes, "Daddy, I want my own ass." Literally, I could start
It was like when he was getting taken by like CPS or whatever, and he's got his little backpack and his little Scuba Steve, and he's walking them out.
I won't listen to the Kangaroo song anymore. I hate that song.
Great movie.
But anyways,
Yeah.
continue.
No, so my mom came almost right after me. She came and moved to Marcy as well, and we lived there for quite some time. Then we moved to Bushwick, Knickerbocker. So I'm talking to you guys about back in the late '90s, early 2000s, which now those neighborhoods sound and look amazing compared to what they were back when I was growing up there.
So what was that like? Because, like, for instance, I'm from a small town, so like even when I hear the Marcy projects, I'm like, all right, what is that? What was life like for you growing up in those places?
So the projects are mainly for low income families.
Right.
And there weren't a lot of, I would say, Hispanics in the projects when we first moved into the projects. And there were some, again, but not that many. We were one of the few Hispanic families in the projects. So obviously we ended up getting into a lot of shit with people because we just looked different.
So do you think that the situation, like growing up in that type of environment, like, before Matthias says, it doesn't seem like anything ever bothers you. Like, and you do, like, people look at you and they're like, the guy's God's killer, just a stone. We were joking about the other day, stone cold killer.
Stone cold killer.
It seems like kind of you had to be, even from a young age, like you kind of had to have that mentality of, this is just kind of like where I'm at. You couldn't be a victim for things. You had to have a tough mentality. You had to be about it.
And that was, again, same thing in the Dominican Republic, though. I come from a very, very bad neighborhood in the Dominican Republic. So it's the same story. You have to have a certain attitude to survive. Like you said, it's survival of the fittest. So you can't be the weak one because, you will get eaten alive. So you have to kind of grow up with that tough mentality. And anybody that knows me, like, you guys know, I'm a clown. I like to joke around. But when it comes down to putting my foot down, I'll put my foot down and put it up your ass real quick. There's no hesitation. And if I have to throw hands, throwing hands, or doing whatever it is that needs to be done.
So you moved from the Dominican Republic to New York, and now you're kind of like transitioning into like life in America. And, it's a Spanish speaking, family and a different neighborhood. You said you get in your little scuffles and you get into all that shit. There's a time that you decided to join the military, right? And there's also a gap where you kind of started a family at a young age.
Yeah.
Like where did that, like, how did that come about? Like most people around the age of 15, 18 are thinking about where they're going to go to college and what they're going to do next. Like what was your plans?
Well, I was always different. You grew up, like I said, I grew up in not the best neighborhoods. And I always felt like I was different. I used to hang out, obviously. We were always outside, again, here in the United States and in the Dominican Republic. So I was always hanging out. But I was different than most of my friends. like I didn't enjoy the stuff that they enjoyed, whatever that might be. I was different. I always figured that I was different. I always wanted to be in the military. And when I moved to Long Island, that was right after high school. I graduated in 2003. My wife graduated in 2003 as well. Then my mom decided that she wanted to move to Long Island. We have family, the same family that we actually moved into Brooklyn with the first time. They had moved to Long Island, to Central Islip. And my mom and her, the wife, are very close. They grew up together. They're cousins, but born and raised in the same house. So you guys hear me all the time talking about my brothers, and you guys know that they're my cousins because we were just born and raised in the same house. So we grew up as siblings more than cousins, born and raised in the same house. So my mom came to Long Island. She used to come out here all the time while I was in high school to visit, and she liked it out here. I did not like it, so I used to stay in Brooklyn whenever she came out here. In 2003, she decided she wanted to move. She wanted better for us, and she decided to move to Long Island. I'm thankful for that. I went to Suffolk County Community College. After that, for a little while, I got a job, and I worked in that job, I would say, for 9 years. I started there as general helper, and I ended there as a supervisor. So I went from the lowest you can be to probably the highest we could have achieved at that time. Now they seem a little more willing to hire managers from within, but to become a supervisor, they will hire you from within. To become a manager, they used to bring people from outside. Now they seem like they're more willing to have the homegrown managers, which should be the way to do it, because now you know everything that's going on there. You know everyone, so
that's good. That's how you just treat employees.
Correct.
People to want to do their job.
Correct. So a lot of people left. A lot of good people left because they knew they weren't going to become managers, and the company paid really good. And I was there for a while. I moved back to Brooklyn. So I moved here in 2003 and moved back to Brooklyn in 2003 because my wife's mom moved out and went to Florida. So my wife had the apartment for her and her sister. And I moved in with them. And when I would say 2005, when we found out that my wife was pregnant with our first child, I told my wife, I was like, we need to move out of here. I don't want my kids growing up in this shitty neighborhood. It's already bad enough that we grew up here. I don't want the same lifestyle for my kids. And we moved back to Long Island in 2005.
How old were you in 2005?
I would say 20, 21, maybe 20, 21.
They're older than that, yeah. I was 15.
Yeah. So 2021, and you're getting ready to have your first child. What's going through your mind? Like, how do you feel? I mean, think about all the 21-year-olds in today's, time. I mean, I always laugh at the 21-year-olds. I'm like, you don't even know how to wipe your own ass yet. And you're going to be 20, 21 years old.
A new song. You should play that.
We should definitely put that in there. But you're going to be 21 years old. You're going to have a baby. Like, how do you feel? What are your thoughts?
To be honest, and funny you asked that, I was in that company that I was in, that I was nine years into that company. I devoted 9 years to that company. I was just getting ready to get fired because I didn't want to be there anymore. And the way I do it, I don't burn bridges. I just blow them up. Like, I wanted no possibility of ever being able to come back. So, like, they had a point system. After you get to the 10 points, you would get fired.
Why doesn't this surprise me?
Hey.
Yeah, sounds right. It's not
about like Angel.
Right? So
I walk out, hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Nah, fuck that.
Yeah, exactly.
I was getting ready to ask him, I was like, wow, I don't even think I knew you worked there, or you went to Suffolk Community College. Now we know why.
It's in Deer Park, by the way. The job is in Deer Park.
Great. The whole streets.
Yeah. So Deer Park is where the job is. It's still there. I still have family members that work there. Again, it's a great company. And
I was getting ready to say, now I know why you didn't mention the name of the company.
Yeah. So I still have family there. You can go and verify my story if you want. So it was a point system, and I was at 9 points. And the day that I found out that my wife was pregnant, I was getting ready to call in to be fired. And I was going to get one more point, so I was going to get fired that day.
I really want to know what you're going to say, and I'm sure none of it we can say on this. So
No, I was just
that question.
I was gonna be like, hey, no, I'm not coming in today, and I already knew what was gonna come out of that. But as soon as she came out of the bathroom and said, "Hey, we're expecting," I was like, "All right, I gotta go to work."
My answer,
See you, I literally said, "I gotta go to work. See you later."
my answer would have been like, expecting what?
Well, I already knew. I already knew. So I was like, all right, well, I gotta go to work.
It's awesome.
And then as a 21-year-old or as a 20-year-old, it was something that I took to heart. I had something or someone that now I had to feed, I had to care for.
Which is a huge step, because even now, how many people do you see that are like, nah, we're not doing that? For you to step up at a young age, especially with the background and the things that you had to go through, for you to step up and be, you know what, this is the reality, and I'm gonna not fall through with my original plan, and I'm gonna make the best of this, and I'm gonna make sure I provide. I mean, kudos to you, bro. This is a lot about your character.
Well, I had great parents as well. So again, my mom was great. My dad, while he was alive, was great. So I had great role models. I don't know that I ever known to be responsible for anything, because my parents were very responsible with everything. And that's how I was raised, be accountable. And you always hear me talking about accountability.
Yep.
Is because I was always held accountable for my actions, regardless of what those were. And even in that job, like if I messed something up, I used to be like, I messed that up, I apologize. I felt like I've always gotten out of trouble more by telling the truth than I ever did by telling a lie.
So it's funny you say that, and I love that, because that's actually one of the things we teach the kids. We say, listen, you tell me the truth, you're not going to be in trouble. If you lie to me, then it's going to be a different issue.
Of course.
But if you tell the truth, no, what happened? I hit brother. Okay. We're not supposed to hit, right?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Go on. Go play. Now, how people look at me like, oh, you're not going to punch him? No, because he told me the truth.
Correct. And you want to build that bond, like you want to let them know, like, hey, it's okay. If you did it, just let me know that you did it. Don't lie to me and let me find out, because then I will get mad, and then it will be a different response. And that's how I've always been. Again, I was raised to be held accountable, to be accountable for my actions and be responsible. So when we found out that she was expecting, I got my butt out of the house, went to work, and I can tell you, I went from being one of the mediocre workers, and mediocre in the sense that I didn't want to be there. And it sounds shitty to say it this way. I always felt like I was better, that I wanted better for myself. So I didn't want to be there per se, to now going from mediocre to now becoming a superstar, becoming a supervisor. There was this manager that came in around the same time period, and he saw the potential in me, and I appreciate. His name is Joe Koreski. We still friends on Facebook, and
Shout out to Joe.
Joe Koreski.
Joe's and champion.
And I think he saw more in me than I saw in myself at that time. And I appreciated that about him. And I've told him multiple times that I appreciate him taking me under his wing, because he did see the potential that I had. Not many people saw the potential. I still had braids at that time. I still had long hair. And obviously,
still my favorite picture of you. It's still
people
fun.
people see me with braids, and again, that was something that was okay back in the day. A lot of people had braids, a lot of people had long hair, and that was Brooklyn. Everybody had long hair in Brooklyn. Everybody had braids. Everybody had earrings. Everybody wore baggy jeans. Everybody wore baggy shirts. That was the style.
Jumper jacket that everyone in mankind owned.
That was just the style. So, here comes this white guy that doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, and sees me and just kind of bypasses everything about the look and just says, hey, I'm going to take you under my wing. Literally, that's what he said to me. He's like, I see the potential. You have a lot of potential in you, and I want to take you under my wing, and I'm going to make you a supervisor. But he said, in due time, you have to work up to that. So it's not like he was giving it to me. It's like, you got to work up to that. Like, I will tell you how to get to that point. You just got to listen and actually make it happen. So I appreciate Joe Koreski for seeing the potential that I didn't see. And I think from that moment on, seeing him believe in me more than I believed in myself at that time, he created what I like to say a monster. Because I felt that I became very confident in myself and my abilities. at that point, thanks to him, because he was the one that gave me the opportunity. He was the one that saw it in me. And once I felt that, I was like, oh, I love this, you know? And that's my story with that company. I was there, and again, I always felt like I was better than that. So at some point throughout that time that I was there, I started there in 2004. In 2000, I'm going to fast forward to 2010. I go and take the entry exam for the Air Force. My cousin, Juan Ledger, he's currently not in the United States. I don't know if I can disclose where he's at right now. He was in the Air Force at the time. We were supposed to go active duty together. He went active duty. I decided to not go. We were doing what was called the buddy system back in those days, right after high school. He followed through with it. I did not, for whatever my reasons. Carolyn Blandino was my reason. But for whatever my reasons were, I didn't do it. He did. Again, fast forward now to 2010. He's back out of active duty. He's in the Guard, in the Air National Guard. He was actually out of the reserves in Massachusetts. So I tell him, hey, I'm thinking about it. He goes, give me a few. I think I'm going to transfer. I think I just found a base on Long Island, out in West Hampton. I go, all right. So while he was transferring from the reserves into the Guard, I was studying. So I still have my job, but I was studying. He got me in touch with a recruiter over there. I took the test. The recruiter went through your academy, actually. Rep. You remember Rep?
Good
He's
dude.
in Paris now, right?
Yeah.
So Rep was my recruiter at the time. I took my test. My mom never wanted me to join, though I wanted to join. She was always thinking that it was gonna be the worst of the worst. I was gonna go to war and I was gonna die because that's what she saw in the movies. I went. I took the test. I passed the test. I called my mom. I go, hey, guess what? She's like, what? I go, I'm joining the Air Force. She's like, no, you're not. I was like, yes, I am. I just took my test. I passed.
You remember
And-
when we were
and
12?
going.
And this is a repeat.
Yeah.
And when we were 12 years
Right.
old, back in my bag.
And I'm leaving.
And what do we say? I wipe my own ass.
That's it. I'm leaving. And I said it. I said it at the time. I go. You can't. You can't tell me what to do, right? I have a whole child. At this point, I already had Khalid.
A whole child.
And,
I wiped two asses.
I have a kid, and I live in my own basement apartment.
I could just imagine him right now with his little chest hairs through his white beater,
I don't have chest hair.
one row.
I know. I've seen you.
Yeah.
So I joined the military in 2010. I was older than most people. I was 26 years old when I joined, and I think it was God's timing is perfect. I don't know that I could have made it prior, and it's not necessarily the training. It was more of my attitude and my mentality.
So with that, just kind of want to touch on something with that. I think a lot of people kind of dive into things like, oh no, I should go do this because it's what I should do. They don't give themselves the time to try and grow as a person, in maturity wise in the situations. And I think we see that often in the line of police, right? We see a lot of people, if they come in 20 to 25 years old, yeah, they're an adult. Yeah, but we talked about this earlier, but they don't really know how to cope. They don't really know how their mind is going to work in situations of this undue stress and things like that.
They had no idea what the hell they're getting themselves into.
Right. And so the fact that you were able to look at that and say, I'm glad I waited, I'm glad that this is now the time I went, because if you went earlier, maybe your mindset would have been way different.
Correct. So when I went there, I remember butting heads with one of the instructors.
Shock.
Well, actually, it was because of him. I was trying to be as quiet as possible because remember, I just told you that my cousin was in the Air Force, so he had already told me, hey, listen, try to be the quiet kid.
Yeah.
Don't be a superstar. Be in the middle of the pack. So I was extremely quiet, which is very freaking hard for me to do, to be super quiet. So I was extremely quiet. I'm trying not to make a name for myself. I'm literally trying to be recruit, whatever my last name is, but I'm trying to be stealth.
Right.
Like I'm not trying to be anybody that's known in my class. And one day, for some reason, he picked me in the crowd and just took his anger out on me out of nowhere. Literally out of nowhere. Had never gotten in trouble. And that day, I got in trouble about 9 times. We used to have these things called 341s where you would put your name, your rank, and your dorm, and who your instructor was. I got 9 of those things pulled out in one freaking day. Never got in trouble prior to that. And that was like, I would say maybe week 2 or 3 of basic training. So I was good for like 2-3 weeks. But the reason I got into it with him was because he grabbed me by the collar. And I do not appreciate people touching me. You can motherfuck me all day long, and I'm cool with that. Don't put hands on me. I don't give a shit who you think you are, because you're gonna find out real quick you're not who you think you are. So when I tell you that God's timing is perfect, had he done that when I was 21, 22, 23, I probably would have punched him in the face right there and then, no questions asked. But I already had a purpose. I had my kid. I knew that I wanted to do better for my kid and my future kids. So at the time that he put his hand around my collar and told me to fight him, because he told me to fight him, I held my tongue. He goes, I know you want to punch me. I go, no, I don't, sir. And he knew I wanted to punch him. Like, there was no question in my face expressions. Like, I might have held myself back, but my face did not hold back. But I didn't. I didn't punch him. I didn't give him the satisfaction to send me home, because I had a purpose. I had a reason to be there. So I got through basic training. Till this day, if I see that man, till this day, I will punch him in the fucking face. Till this day. Now,
Where is he?
Who the fuck knows?
So
Retired.
What's a way that now, or even then, that you dealt with that, like that you were able to withhold and get rid of some of that anger, that just general, fighting the urge to outlash, or whatever you want to call it, at that guy?
Writing music was my outlet. That's how I dealt with a lot of. You talked about your journal, your video journal. I used to write. It's no secret for those of you that know me. I used to write music, specifically rap music. So I used to tell stories. I used to make up stories. That was my thing. When I was in basic training, I remember we had this thing called Freestyle Fridays. So everybody would come around my bed and we start freestyling. The whole night we were freestyling. Like, everybody who wanted to jump in, and just from the top of your head, you would just start rapping.
And what did that do for you?
It released a lot of anger. It made me feel happy. Now I was in a different world. Now my mind is occupied with something that is nothing to do with being angry. Now I'm just telling a story, painting a picture, whatever the case might be. So it just kind of got me to relax. It got me to that point where I was no longer angry. I was no longer mad, because I'm doing something that I like to do. So I appreciate it.
Out of the world.
Correct. So that was my way of dealing with things. Unfortunately, my music career came to a halt back in 2017, actually, when we came out of the academy, because apparently doing music is a bad thing. And it was
Yeah, frowned upon that.
yeah, it's frowned upon, apparently. If I was doing country music, I'd probably still be doing it right now to this day, but it wasn't country music, it was rap. And apparently there's no way that you can make rap music without being derogatory towards police officers, apparently. But I can
You
say
can say nothing about
at
it.
1,000%. I never said a freaking word about police officers ever, because in the Spanish culture, and Matias being from the Spanish culture can, I guess, verify or validate my statement. We're raised different. We're raised to actually respect law enforcement. Like in the Dominican Republic, and I've said this to many people, in the Dominican Republic, if you talk back to a police officer, they'll slap the shit out of you right there and then. Like, there's no way you're getting away with telling a police officer in the Dominican Republic, fuck you. They will fucking slap you right there and then. And not only will they slap you, now you're getting arrested as well. So now you got fucked up by the cops and you're getting arrested. So talk about having human rights. There's no fucking human rights in the Dominican Republic. You have no rights. You have the right to shut the hell up. That's the right you have. Believe it or not, that's till this day, that's a true statement in the Dominican Republic. to this day. So I never said anything about police officers in any of my songs. You guys know I have 2 albums, and till this day I'll still give those albums to anybody in any department. And if they can find where I say anything negative or positive about law enforcement, I'll quit. I wouldn't even give them the satisfaction to fire me. I'll quit.
I think what we need to do is get those albums made into like a giant record, we'll just plaster them up on the wall.
I need my plaque.
Down here.
I-
That's
plaque.
what, yeah.
The Underground King.
We
That ain't been
I
found.
think we should
Crown.
100% do that.
Basement king.
Yeah,
So
the
also-
Basement King.
And so for when we did the last episode, we asked people to reach out, right? I think for this one,
Don't read it out.
if you want to hear Angel's music, just let us know. We'll tell you right where to find it.
I mean, I have the YouTube
Right
link
where
attached
to find it.
to his contact in my phone because people ask about it. So I go, hold on a second. I just forward him the YouTube link, and I'm like, here you go.
So we did contemplate, right, making one of your songs our intro.
You guys did talk about that.
I mean, it's never too late for that.
And
Maybe we could put it in the background of this conversation.
We'll put it in a part of this podcast, and we'll see what we get for feedback.
so just for context, by the time I joined the police department, now fast forward, I said I joined the military when I was 26. I joined the police department when I was 32. I already had 3 kids at that time. I had 2 deployments under my belt already. But that's stuff that nobody knew about me in the police department yet, other than my investigator.
Yeah, I don't
right.
think
And
any of us knew.
I didn't talk about that stuff in the academy. There was nothing to talk about in the academy. I didn't have to disclose any of my personals.
So anybody that's looking to go into the police academy, I do want to bring up one thing. Should you bring your lunch to them first?
So
Forget that.
So yes, you should bring your lunch to your
Oh
friend.
my God.
What you shouldn't do is forget your goddamn lunch, because I have my lunch. I forgot my lunch. And then I tell my wife, whatever you do not bring my lunch. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Again, whatever you do not bring my lunch, because we didn't live too far from the academy. Do you understand me? Obviously, I'm a military guy. I know what happens if he brings my damn lunch to the first day. And sure enough, you guys could say what happened when we're in formation.
Standing there in formation. I'm actually next to Matthias. Stand there in formation, and I just hear another guys come in. Blandino! I'm like, what the fuck is that? Did you forget your lunch? And I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
No, sir.
He's just
That ain't mine.
bullshit. He starts going through the lunch and just naming every single little thing.
This coconut water was so delicious. And the grape so sweet. I'm like, oh,
Shit,
shit.
café con leche. Café bustelo.
And that was Morash.
Dying, man. We
That
were
was Morash.
dying. Oh my God.
So and again, I give my wife credit for bringing me the lunch, because the reason she
All
brought me the
good
lunch,
intentions.
good
It
intentions.
just got you
She
fisted.
knows I get sick if I don't eat for a long time. Like, I get very sick. I get nauseous. Now I gotta take a nap, which that was not gonna happen.
I've seen what happened
in-
when
in
he
the
gets
academy.
nauseous and takes a nap. Because last time that happened, he took a nap on me.
And you know how I bounce back. But it takes
You get your nap, you're
it
all
takes
good.
a while to
Yep.
bounce back. But I need a nap. And she thought I was gonna get sick, but I think we had already spoken to people on the floor.
Yeah.
They had like apples. Like, people were like, "Oh, don't worry, we got you."
Yeah.
Because I had already explained this to some people. So I already had it covered. She just didn't know that I had it covered. And she decided to bring me my lunch.
Listen, no, we can't. Obviously, we can't reach out. You can't text. You can't call. You can't write a letter through carrier pigeon.
And then
you
she
can't
gets-
do anything, right? It's just
She gives it to the biggest psychopath in the academy as an instructor. And I'm like, oh my God.
you couldn't even to anybody else.
And that followed me the whole 7 months that we were in the academy. That literally, I was the guy that forgot his lunch. For 7 months, I was that guy.
Listen, we've been laughing for like 30 minutes now, and I just kind of want to transition into, like, you know, the moments that we kind of missed in that time gap between you leaving the Marcy Projects, you moving to Long Island. Now you have a child on the way, and then of course there were 2 more that came after that. And now you're in the military, you get into the police department, you have all these achievements, right? And I'm sure that those deployments, being a veteran myself, there were some tough times, man. Like, let's talk about some of the issues of going away, because a lot of people think like, oh, well, this person got on deployment. But one thing I learned was you're gone, and you're kind of like, I'll be back in 6
Oh,
or
some
7
Arnold.
months.
I'll be back.
You know, I mean, you'll be back. Deployments can range from 6, 7 months, maybe a couple months. Typically, the Army does 12 months, but they do a little R&R in the middle. But you're gone from your family. You're gone from these, let's call them newborns. They're young. They're babies, you know, and you're missing a little part of their lives, you know, by being gone a couple times. Like, what were some of the struggles, the tough times that you kind of had to just, I guess, embrace?
Well, so again, I left to basic training in 2010. I would say August. Everything seems to happen around August. I came to the United States in August 1996. I went to basic training in August.
That's your month.
2010. I go from basic training to tech school. That's the school where you learn your trade. So I had a good 8 months gone from home altogether. From basic is 2 months, 2.5 months, and my school was about 6 months. So altogether about 8, 9 months gone. First time being away from my kids. First time being away from my family, from the wife, from everybody. I had never been away for that long, ever. So that was tough because it was the first time that it happened. I come back in 2011 and I deploy, first deployment, 2012. I'm talking about a year later after I came back from school. I'm deployed. I go overseas. They gave me a choice as to 2 different locations that the deployments were happening simultaneously. I chose what I thought was the better location. You guys know where I went. Nothing crazy happening there. At least not that people know about, but there's always something happening there. So I deployed in 2012. I would say the biggest issue was coming back from deployment and now having to reintegrate myself back to society, back to the family. Because remember, I was gone, but everything was continuing here.
Right.
Nothing stopped while I was gone. Like, everybody continued to go to work, everybody continued to go to school, everybody continued to live their lives, whatever that was. So now I get back from my deployment, and again, nothing crazy. There's no combat. I don't have any combat. Will never say that I saw combat. I never had any of that experience. Come back, and now I'm having a tough time reintegrating myself to society, to the point where I don't want to go out. I don't want to go to the gym. I feel distant from people. Don't know what's happening. This is 2013 now. I deployed 2012, came back 2013. Don't know what's happening. Don't know what this is. It was just weird. It took me a little while to kind of get out of that funk. And by a little while, I mean like maybe months. And again, don't know what that was. Don't know how to explain it. Just know that I didn't want to do anything. I had zero interest in doing anything. And again, came back from the deployment and just felt that way.
Now, do you think that's partly because, you know, I obviously have never been deployed, was not in the military. From other people who I know that I've talked to, one of the reasons or things that they bring up is, you know, when you're deployed, whether you saw combat or not, you know why you're deployed, right? Even if it's somewhere that is not, I say this in a way, not necessarily like frontline bad, you're still deployed. You're still in the military. Everything is a regimented, higher stress, volumed, day-to-day.
We are
thing.
a rescue wing. When we are deployed, that's what our wing does. We rescue.
Right.
So we did have a bunch of missions, like rescue missions.
And so everything you do is almost at a heightened
level,
cortisol level.
Correct.
But everything is trying to figure out the best way is this. So when you wake up in the morning, you know the things you have to do, and then all right, we're gonna do this mission.
Very structured.
Right.
Everything's painted for you.
You know exactly what you're to a point what you're gonna be doing that day, and that's your portion. So do you think like part of that, right? You're so used to that, then you come back to the everyday real life situation, real life as in, you know, you're not back there, you're back home, where everything is fluid. Everything is crazy. And again, you be out of that scenario, out of that home, and now you're put back in that home. Do you think that that's, like you said, you don't know why? Well, it seems to me that that's why. It's you have that freedom, but it's almost unwanted or uncomfortable freedom, because you're like, what am I supposed to do?
All right.
Everyone else is still functioning in their everyday being, and I'm,
Like I said, to everyone
just
kept going.
used to doing this,
Yeah.
and everyone else is, you're trying to jump right back into the race of, well, this person's doing this, feeling this. The last week they've done this, and you're sitting there going, what the fuck do you want me to do?
Yeah.
I don't understand. And you're not around all the other people, like, when you're deployed, you're all there doing the same type of thing, right? You're all there, you're in the military. Whereas when you come home, that's not the case. You're almost by yourself, even though you could be with your family. Because
Well, everybody. So that's another thing. So when we come back from deployment, we have some time off. So now I'm home in my own head by myself while everybody's working, because
Right.
I was off because I had just served for whatever amount of time overseas. So you get 2 weeks off, and then you accrue leave as well while you're deployed. So it turns out to be almost a month that we got off when I came back, and that whole month I wanted to do absolutely nothing. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to be in my own house, in my own feelings, whatever I was going through. Like you said, everyone continued their lives. I came back from, like you said, being very structured, knowing that I had to work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week. And those 12-hour shifts, if anybody that's deployed could tell you, or that has ever deployed could tell you, 12-hour shifts are not really 12-hour shifts. They are 14-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, 18-hour shifts, because things just continue to move. And it's a very fast pace. You have to be there to know what I'm talking about. Whoever has deployed knows what I'm talking about. 12 hours, 10 hours, they do not turn out to be 10, 12 hours. They turn out to be 14, 16 hours.
but your mind,
days.
your body, you're
You're
continuously
trained. Correct.
occupied, and
Correct.
I'm not a robot.
You're always doing something.
This is my focus.
Yes.
When you come home, that's not what's taking out. So it seems like, again, your body's almost going through this complete
It's a shock.
rewiring, right? And I think that's what the big is your body's going through this shock of, well, I'm used to just having to think or do or move, but not think and do or move. And then now
Yeah.
when you're back home, you're like, well, I have to make all this up. But your body's just like, hey, man, I need to just shut down, and it's uncomfortable.
It's almost like it's almost like the chemistry, right? Like your chemistry in your body's changing. We've talked a little bit about hormones and how, especially now, there's so much neuroscience going on, and you got Huberman explaining all the things that go on with neuroplasticity and how your mind is structured and your brain works and so on and so forth. And this is why I think it's important to have this conversation. He goes in at a young age. He has children at a young age. He moved from a different culture. That's a lot of different things that are happening, like life experiences, right? In such a small amount, which when you're not in the military, when you're not in law enforcement, when you're not growing so fast, it seems like those people almost have a little bit of time to separate these like life experiences. And now you have a young man who is coming from, again, a different country, a different culture, deploying, coming back, having kids, going from this career, starting this job, and whatever else. And it's kind of why it's important to have this conversation. I'm pretty sure that if the listeners would respond, there's somebody else out there that's gone through what he's going through, what he went through. What I would like to think I went through those similar things this past year, where you're almost like, who the fuck am I? Like it almost doesn't feel like it's real. Like everything is just happening so fast, right? You're in your early 30s. You got 3 fucking kids. You got a wife. You got a house. You got so much responsibility. You're deployed. Your body's in shock. You're in a different country. There's a different language. You come back to a different language. You were structured. Now you're not structured. You're in a team. You wake up with like 15 other guys, when you guys were running missions, and now you come home and you're kind of by yourself. Like, I don't know, man. Like I was, especially in the Marine Corps, we're very tight. Like we were always like with each other. We're on post, like Angel said, for 12, 15, 18, 24 hours a day. And, Kelsey jumped on a couple of weeks ago when we talked on the live. And you guys remember we were having conversations about marriage and whatever else. And now Angel comes back and he's trying to figure out like what's happening to me. I don't really want to, this isn't who I am.
Right.
You know, and I think it's your body's way of saying, hey, let's slow down a little bit. We got too much going on all at the same time, and you don't know how to translate those things. And with the stigma of, hey, like you said, mental health is not something that people have ever really
Definitely not in 2012,
lied about.
2013.
No, exactly. You know, who the hell do you go to and who do you talk to and go, hey, I don't know, I don't feel right.
Back in 2012, 2013, if you ever even thought about speaking about mental health, you were done. Your career was done. Your life was done. Like, there is nobody that wanted to employ you. There's no way you were going to employ it.
So knowing that, how did you end up dealing with that portion of things? How did you work yourself through? How did you find your way back into yourself?
It took a while. I cannot tell you that I had. Correct.
Purely believing and letting your body go through and not panicking.
That's it. And that's what we were talking about earlier. You can tell somebody going through it, all you need is time. Just give it time. But when you're going through it, you don't want to hear that because that's not an answer. Like, in your mind, the more time you have, the more you think about things. So you're in your head now that shit, if time is what I need, time is my enemy right now because the more time I have, the more I'm thinking about things.
You know, I posted something a couple of weeks ago on social media. Like, you know,
You don't say.
I love to,
You both-
I love to do the polls. All bullshit aside, I love to do those polls. You know, when I ask people, do you like this, do you like that? I said, do you rather be with friends or do you rather be by yourself? And if so, why don't you want to be by yourself? And I looked it up on Google, and again, Google Doctor, who knows?
I love
I'm
being
sure
by myself.
somebody listening to this podcast is probably in some kind of psychology, mental health. I know you have friends or family who are psychologists, and
My cousin,
You
who
know-
we're definitely going to have on. She's excited.
I can't wait. You could ask her this question. I guarantee you that she'll probably verify these numbers. Said 70% of people cannot stand to be alone with their own thoughts. You know, and for so long, I always wondered, like, why? You know, why don't they like them? And some people, including myself, start overthinking about everything, overanalyzing everything. So now you go from a guy who used to be good and now all of a sudden just comes home, doesn't feel right. And how do I justify what's going on? Like, how do I explain to myself, who is this guy? I've never had any of these things going on. Like he said, he usually loves going to the gym. Why doesn't he want to go to the gym anymore? He doesn't really want to leave the house. Well, he's kind of comfortable. And to be quite frank, he's in a foreign country and you're constantly on alert and your body's like always in this high alert. And you're just like,
You just want to relax a
I
little
want to
bit.
be at home.
Yeah, I just came from being in a high tempo situation, and again, it took me a little while to figure this out, and I was working my butt off the whole time I was there. Now I'm home. I want to enjoy my time at home. I don't want to go out. I don't want to go to a party. I don't want to go to a movie. I don't want to go to a restaurant. I want to be home. Like, I just came from working 16, 18-hour days, 6 months, 4 months, whatever, 5 months, whatever amount of time I was there. And it was like, I just want to be home. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to talk to people. I was very secluded. So I end up getting a job in a joint task force out in the city after my deployment. That's Army and Air Force. And I'm there from 2013 to 2015. In 2015, I go on my second deployment. So my second deployment, now I'm going through, in my mind, I'm going to go through the same stuff coming back home because I just went through it. But again, there was nobody you can talk to back in those days. So now I'm more alert by what's about to happen to me. Like, I'm more mindful of what's about to happen to me. So I tell the wife, I'm like, hey, listen, coming back in 2012, this is what happened to me. It took me a little while to figure things out. Just give me some time. When I come back home, let me figure my stuff out. I don't know what happened to me. I just know that it happened to me. Again, there was nobody that you could talk to.
Sure.
Nobody that was going to tell you, hey, this is what happened to you. This is what your body went through. This is what your mind went through. So I'm like, this might happen to me again. If you notice that this is happening to me, give me some time. Let me figure my stuff out. So I start applying for law enforcement jobs at this point in 2015. But I'm still going through a very tough time with being back from a deployment. Now I'm having potential marital issues because of whatever it is that I'm going through, transitioning back into civilian life. So I would say mental health, even back in 2015. Now this I'm talking about my second deployment, wasn't a cool thing to talk about. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have anybody to share my stories with. So I went through it alone. And the quote that we read earlier during your episode about I went through my darkest time on my own while smiling and everybody thinking that everything was fine, right? Something along those lines. That's why that quote hit, correct. That's why that quote hit home for me, because I felt like I went through my darkest time on my own, and I still had to smile and make it seem like everything was fine with me. I didn't have anybody to talk to. There was no psychologist. There was no mental health experts, and they obviously they've always been there, but nobody's telling you to talk to these people. Nobody's talking about mental health at this point. No. So it's not like you can disclose these things. And now if I disclose these things, now what? Now my future career that I don't have, that's it. That's going to be used against me for serving my country. Like, I just potentially lost a career after I went to serve my country. Like, that's a messed up thing to think about.
Yeah.
Like, I just went to serve my country twice, and whatever issues that I was having, whatever it is called, and again, I'm not giving any diagnosis. I'm not giving any diagnosis. Now I have to suck it up, buttercup, and guess what? Deal with it, because nobody's talking about this. There's nobody telling me how to maneuver this. There's nobody else talking about them going through similar situations. So it's not like I'm listening to people going through my situation. I'm going through it on my own. Now, fast forward to now, I'm good, right? Like, I already went through my darkest time. Darkest time was 2015, 2016 timeframe. I'm good now. I didn't open up about my struggles up until last year when you two started struggling.
Yeah.
And I saw how you guys were struggling. And then I started sharing my struggles with you two. And that's the first time, and my wife could tell you, she probably doesn't know much about my struggles. You guys heard it before anybody else. My mom doesn't know much about my struggles.
Now, do you think even talking about it, even afterwards, has made a difference in how your mentality is going forward, and maybe how you deal with things, or just how you view how you handled it, or how you would handle it again in the future?
As shitty as it was sharing my story with you guys,
it's hard.
I saw the effect it had on you guys, and the effect were positive, right? Like, now you guys are like, holy shit, like, Angels has gone through some shit, right? And look at Angel. Angel's always smiling. Angel's always being a clown. Angel's being this, like the Stone Cold Killer that we were laughing about earlier, right? Angel's this, Angel's that. And again, that's just how I cope. I smile through everything. And I've always said this. I smile through everything.
Which some people can. Some people's humor. Some people's way of coping is, I'm going to be okay to just smile, and I know that will turn this around.
Yep. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I get out of this, to kind of start wrapping things up, is the ability that you had to talk to Chris and I and other friends, because now we have, our group of friends who are law enforcement and military guys. They're in the group chat. It's like these guys all started opening up. I showed you the text message, already, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll ask him if he wants to be on, and then we can kind of disclose who he is. And, again, another guy in law enforcement in a different state, and kind of going through some of the same things that we're going through, and has gone through a lot of the whole mental health things that we've gone through. But if you hadn't explained it the way that it was, I would have thought you're lying to me. I told you were lying, because you told me. I was like, oh, like the thoughts and, the stress and the not eating and not going to the gym and not being who I am. Like, you're like, bro, it's okay. It'll be okay. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not going to be okay. Like, well, what is this? I got to go to the doctor. I got to, talk to the therapist and all that. And everything was okay. But if you've never been through this before, let's be honest. Let's stop being so prideful. Well, I think it's scary.
And the other thing is too, is being cops in military.
I don't give a shit about the cop or the being military.
Well, I was just saying, personalities you want to control.
Right. Well, but not everybody's like that. Angel, I got to give him the credit. He's got that, like, that attitude of, I kind of did it on my own. So he unfortunately had no other way out. But people who've never gone through something like me and are always looking for validation or looking for an answer somewhere else, because sometimes the answer is within. We all know that, right? The answer is within ourselves. But you almost like look for comfort from somebody else. And because Angel didn't have that, it took him seeing us struggling through our things for him to soften it up a little bit and go, hey, I can kind of do the right thing by these guys. I can be there for these guys. And by Angel opening up to us and us opening up to our boys, now we got this whole little group of guys going, dude, this can help people. You know, why wait till people get to that point rather than talk about it, right? Let's talk about it and bring up some knowledge that you might know. And then you start reading and kind of doing your own research. And you'll see that a lot of things that you're dealing with, people have been dealing with this stuff in the Bible. Anxiety's in the Bible. Depression's in the Bible. You know, all these intrusive thoughts are in the Bible. What does the Bible say? Do not be anxious. Do not lean on your own understanding.
Self-love is in the Bible.
Everything is in the Bible. Now, again, it doesn't have to go back to religion because everybody doesn't believe in that. I would love to think that, you know, they'll do. But the reality is that you helped me. You helped Chris. You have helped a lot more people than you think you have, because as much as I sometimes will post something on social media and be upset that I didn't get a lot of likes on something versus something else, I go, the 15 people that like that shit really needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody's listening to this podcast. 100 people might go, what the fuck? And that one person might go, damn, I've kind of been down that same road Angel's in.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we even talked about when we had that phone call, was not everyone is going to agree or love or like what we have to say, right? But if there is a small amount, even there's only one, and they're like, holy shit, this worked, fucking the whole thing's worth it.
Some people are going to be like, these freaking idiots don't know what the hell they're talking about. And then some people are going to be like, damn, this freaking idiots make some sense, right? So we speak for those that are like, this freaking idiots make some sense. Because again, I feel like me opening up to you guys because I felt that you guys were struggling with whatever you were going through at the time. And that's your story to tell, and I'm not going to tell your story. But I felt like me opening up helped you guys. And that's when the idea of having a podcast came about. And I spoke to Matt about, hey, Matt, maybe we should try to do something like this. Then Chris, at some point, also came along. And we're like, hey, Chris, do you want to do this with us? And this is the idea, was of having a podcast so we can share our stories. And hopefully, because I saw how positive it was sharing my story with you guys and the positive impact that it had on you guys, maybe this, me sharing my story, Matthias sharing his story, you sharing your story, Chris, is going to be positive on somebody else. And just creating a little network, right? Like you start sharing, and then more people start sharing, and more people start sharing. And next thing you know, you reach 1 million people. You start one person at a time. The likes on social media and all that stuff, I can't let that shit get to me. I don't even post them. I fucking hate social media. Social media fucking
we'll
sucks.
do a whole episode on that.
Social media is not real.
The younger generation in social media, the mental impact that's having on them is so fucking wild. That the amount of validation they need to get, or that they use against each other. Oh, you didn't get X amount of likes, or whatever.
The fact that this grown man said when he gets 15 likes, he gets annoyed. It's like
I'm happy. You're like, oh shit.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody cares.
No, it's not about the likes.
I get what you're saying.
My biggest thing is, like, you know, you see these chicks, right, or guys posting these Photoshop videos, photos, whatever.
I don't see that.
Take a shirtless photo.
See no evil, speak no evil.
17 million fucking likes. Then you post something like, you know, like about motivation, and people are like, that ain't motivating. Shut up. Next, you know. So sometimes it's an ugly experience. You know, you're like, oh shit, maybe I'm a nobody like I thought I was.
But again, this was my little piece of my story, and obviously, as we go through this podcast and through other episodes, I will continue to share more, and you'll hear some repetition of something that I already said. Talk about the Photoshop people on social media. Matthias over here showing me a Photoshop. But yeah, again, you might hear me repeat some of the stories. You might get a little more of the stories that I shared today. and hopefully this can reach somebody. If it reaches one person and it helped you out, great. That's what this is for. If a person heard this and they didn't like it, sorry, skip the episode. That's who I am. Like, I don't know what to tell you. If this is not for you, then this is not for you. We're here to help, and if you need help and if you're looking for help, please reach out to us. Another Cost Mentality on Instagram, Another Cost Mentality on at gmail.com.
We've got a thread now. We've got a Twitter now.
We have everything. You talk about it because we want to hear it, and that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about it. That's our slogan, talk about it. We want to continue to talk about it. We want to continue to hear about it, because if we're opening up and people are willing to listen to us, we're probably going to be helping somebody. We're definitely going to be reaching out to somebody that we don't even know that we're reaching to just by talking and sharing our stories. And that person might be struggling with something, and they're going to be like, holy crap, listen to these guys, listen to their stories, and they seem to be thriving and doing just fine right now. And again, Matias told me one time that I hide it very well. I don't hide it. I learned how to operate in my new norm is what I did. I learned how to operate in my new parameters. This is a new me. And again, I'll get into this possibly in another episode. This has gone a little longer than I would have liked you, but I didn't want to cut it short either. I want to tell my story just like Chris is going to tell his story, and just like Matias is going to tell his story. These episodes might be a little longer because we're telling our stories. We'll try to keep it to an hour because we know it gets kind of a little bit exhausting after a while.
Well, the best part is you can always pause and come back to it after you.
Yeah, you can skip too. Just saying. But if you want to get the whole story, don't skip.
Well, I think another thing that if you want to reach out, I've actually on a Reddit post somebody reached out and wants to be on, but they don't know if their husband wants.
All right, that's
the
officer and the psychologist.
Wants to be able to talk about their story. We don't have to say names. We don't have to say anything. If you want to, hey, can you just talk about this? Can you post about my story? Give us insight. We can do that. That's not.
Yeah.
We don't.
You can remain anonymous.
Hey, here's Jimmy Johns with the greatest sub or whatever. Whatever.
The military name, John Doe, Jane Doe. You're gonna be John Doe and Jane Doe. If that's who you want to be, we'll refer to you as Jane and John Doe. You will be fine.
But I want to say, so I think one of the big things that you had from your own mental health, journey through your stuff was being patient with yourself.
That's it. You have to give yourself time. The mind is gonna get better when the mind feels like it's gonna get better. You can't control it. You can't. You're gonna try, and in trying, that's when you start getting the panic attack. That's when you start having the depression. That's when you start having high anxiety. You have to give the mind time. And I understand that it sounds crazy because I feel that time might be your enemy. At least you feel like it might be your enemy, but the mind is going to be right when the mind decides to be right. You can't control it. And that's my story in a little nutshell.
Well, brother, thank you for telling us your story and open it up. Next episode will be on the one, the only man, myth, legend.
The legend.
Matias.